Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is probably going to be the last video in this series. In this video we're going to cover kind of saving images to the database along with records. So here's a quick video kind of showing you what the app is going to do. So as you can see, we've got a list of items and we're saving information about each one of the entries that we save in the database. You notice there's different usernames so different users can log in and save images. We have a title, description, time, user. And then when you click the AddItemModal ID, you can enter some data, title. We also allow you to save an image, as I said. So here's just a sample from a camera. You can also click and add something from a photo gallery. And then we are using ReactHookForm to validate the data that you're entering in the field. So let's actually enter an image. And we're going to save the image. And next we need to add a description. Notice how the keyboard slides in and moves up and gives room to enter the text. And so you can enter text in the information that gets associated with it. Then you save the image, and then you can notice how it automatically updated the field. And so that's kind of showing you how we're using real-time functionality from Supabase to notice that the table had changed and update the view. So that's pretty much what we're about to build in this next video. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and also check out the rest of the series. The link will be below, and let's get to the code. We're going to try to move through this quickly. I will probably post a blog with most of the source code in this, so if you can't follow along, you can always go there and check out the source code. So the first thing we need to do is so as you saw in the app, we're going to build and post this ad. We're going to put a form here inside this modal, and then we're going to save it to Supabase. In this application, we already showed you how to pick images. Come on, it's a little slow on the emulator. How to pick images and how to choose them and how to kind of save them to the back end. That's what we're doing here, so that's nothing new. Also, we did the same thing with the take picture, so that's nothing new. We showed how to read data out of the database, and we're going to kind of, as I said, we're going to pull them all together to kind of show the demo that I showed previously. So let's start by starting to move some things around. So we are, well actually first let's talk about the backend database in Supabase and what we did. All right, so let me just zoom in a bit here, if I can. So we had to update our data a little bit. So what we did is we wrote some SQL scripts to create this new item data table, which is where we're going to save our data. We have our UID, which is going to be our unique identifier for the data. We're saving the time was inserted, time was updated. We're going to save some descriptive text. We're going to save a title. And then we're going to save the image key that's associated with the image. This is how we're going to find the image in the bucket. And then we're also going to store the ID of the owner or the user who put the image in the database. This is the profiles table, which we've already went over when we talked about creating accounts. And then the last thing that we're doing is we want to be able to get real-time updates as we add items to this item data. So we need to alter this table to basically tell Supabase, listen for updates and let us get changes, get notifications when there's changes to this table. And so these are the changes we need to make in Supabase. I've already done them. I've already set up the table. We covered Supabase in an earlier video. Please watch that. But I just wanted to let you know what are the scripts that we had to run to get the database set up, how we needed it. Since we're talking about Supabase, let's hop right into that and focus on changes to our service, because we're going to isolate all the Supabase functionality inside of this service. And right now it's pretty empty. So there's a few things that we need to be able to do to make everything work. Is we need to be able to read data and write data from this table. And so I have two functions that are going to support that. The first function, which we will call write item data. And what write item data is going to do is going to take that to kind of match the table that we discussed. It's going to take a title, a description, and an image key. because those are the main things that we need to save it. And then we will get the owner ID based on who the current user is. And this is a Supabase API call, which says go to this item data table and insert this record. So that's what this write item data function does. The next function that we need is called read item data. And it's pretty intuitive what that does. It's going to read all of the data from the item table, and it is going to also do a join. So this will get us all the item data, but then I'll do a join on the profiles table for the user record that includes the ID, the username, and the first name, last name, who posted that piece of data to Supabase table. So this is basically how we're doing a join inside of Supabase right here. So it says, as I said, select item, select everything from the item table, and then select the profile record that's associated to the item that you've just selected. So that'll give us all the user information and each one of the elements that exist in the Supabase table. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to move the upload function. So we'll save this here. If we go to our photo screen from our previous video, we had this kind of upload from URI function. Just to kind of make it simple for the purpose of the demo, we've kind of moved this function into our services file, and we modified it a little bit to give us additional information that we need. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because like I said, we covered it in the previous video. But the important thing to know is that we're going to pass the photo URI that we get back from the camera. We're going to pass the type of image. We're going to get the extension. We're going to pull out a file name. We're going to create a form to upload the file. We're going to pass the information that we need to pass to it. And then here in our image bucket, we're going to save that image to Supabase. And if there's any errors, we'll throw an error. Otherwise, we're just going to return all of the data that we got back. And inside that data is the key. But we're just going to send everything back to whoever calls this function. And so those are all the changes that we need to make to a Supabase service. And we put them all up front so that we can just kind of have some clear separation in the videos. So this is kind of the end of the Supabase section. What will happen is I'm just going to leverage these functions inside the application. And so now let's kind of get to just that. I think we're going to start with this AddItemModal on how you add information to the database. Okay, so let's start with the add and start to create some code here inside of this modal. So let's find our home screen. Yeah, here's my home screen. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this out of here because we know it's going to start to get crowded. So we're going to refactor a little bit. We're going to use our Visual Studio Code. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to go in here and we're going to say, where is this? Refactor, move to new file. And so now we've got our home screen stuff pulled out to a separate file here. And let's get rid of all of this stuff because we know we don't need it, but we'll just leave our comment there for the page content belongs down there. Okay, let's save our drawer stack that shows it's moved. And then we need to fix our requires because I suspect it's going back to get some styles. So let's move out the modal and let's get rid of the styles also. So let's go back to the draw stack. And where's my modal? First of all, let's change the name of this modal to AddItemModal. Let's save that. We have an error, but we'll fix that error in a minute. And then let's kind of follow the same thing and kind of move this down to its own file also. So let's do a refactor, move to new file, AddItemModal. So we got those guys out of here, and so then let's go to our AddItemModal. I've created a whole set of styles, so we're just going to delete the styles from there, and then we're going to go into my home screen, and same thing, we're going to delete the styles from there. We've changed the name of our modal, so let's change this to AddItemModal. And you can see it put the import in, but now let's move over my set of styles. Like I said, I created all my styles once. I don't want to spend a bunch of time going through the styles with you, so I'm just going to kind of cut and paste them all in for you right now. So here's all the styles for my modem. And here's all the styles for my home screen. So that's set. Now let's make sure everything is still running properly, because so here's my terminal. Let's kind of refresh this and see if we get it going. Okay. Oh, I need to import style sheet. So let's go up here and get style sheet imported from React Native. So let's do it in my AddItemModal. Style sheet. And then let's also go to my home screen. This to style sheet. Oh, in my style in my modem, I'm calculating some screens, so I'm calculating some dimensions. So I need my device height constant, which I'm actually getting from React Native. So let's make sure we include that. And so that is inside my AddItemModal. So let's go to AddItemModal. Let's put that constant right at the top here. And then, oh, I keep forgetting. Got to import dimensions from React Native. There we go. Okay, so our styles are moved over. Our screen's empty. Our modal's all cleared out. So let's start with, since we're already here in our modal, let's start kind of laying out what we want the screen to look like here. We're going to have a bunch of input fields, and so of course in the input fields we're going to use my favorite utility, which is ReactHookForm. But first let's see if we can get just some of the UI laid out properly here. And we'll follow the same approach as before. We'll kind of drop in some code and kind of explain what's going on instead of you guys kind of watching me type the whole thing, but we'll try to do it piece by piece. So one of the first things that we want to do is that we need the screen to be able to properly move as we add content, and especially when we want to put stuff inside of input fields. So we're going to wrap the whole screen with this plugin that I found called a Keyboard Aware Scroll View. And I forgot I need to actually import that thing. So let's see if I can import that now. So it's React Native Keyboard Aware Scroll View, and then we need to actually import our import for that. So we'll bring that down there in the bottom. Okay, and so we have our Keyboard Aware Scroll View. And so let's start to fill out some content inside of here. And once again, leveraging the styles that we've already kind of put in place to make all this stuff look nice. And so first let's start with putting in a title. Okay, we just need to do a reload. All right, so we got a new item, but let's start putting my close buttons in, so when I bring that window up I can actually close it. So what we want to do is at the bottom we're going to add two buttons. As most of you found when you start to use React Native is you start to create your own components because you start to see that you're doing things multiple times. And I've created my own button component here to kind of manage the style and how I want my buttons to look. And so I'll just drop in my button component, and then we'll actually use it here in the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is at the bottom of my dialog, I'm going to create, but make sure you put it inside of this Keyboard Aware Scroll View. I'm going to put my two buttons, one which will kind of just reset the screen and close, and the other one which will handle the submit button. And clearly it's complaining because it's missing some functions. And so now is probably a good time to introduce ReactHookForm, because with ReactHookForm we're going to handle the form fields that are being added inside of this component. So let's first start by adding the import, and we need a couple of imports because we're going to handle our field validation using using a yup resolver, which you can do with ReactHookForms. So we're going to bring in ReactHookForm, we're going to bring in the resolver yup, and then you need the actual yup library to use the resolver. So I need to kind of install all these guys. So let's do that now. Yeah, I already get the resolver with ReactHookForm, so then all that's left is to install yup. Okay, so we got yup installed. Let's save this. And let's reload our page so we can get our menu item visible again. Okay. Oh, I need my view. Oh, now let's add more of the ReactHookForm code because that appears to be what's missing. So first, let's add our schema. So outside here, we're going to create a constant, and the constant will hold the specific schema that we're using. It's our form schema, and so we're saying we have a title. And it's required. We have a description that's required, and then we have an image object that's also required. And this will keep this is going to have the URI for the image that was selected. We're stating that these are required fields, but we need to import ReactHookForm here inside of our application. So let's just get the whole import all at once. So right at the top inside of our function, we'll import it. And we'll go ahead and go through what's happening here. So for ReactHookForm, I need register because I need to register all of the form field entries. I need set value to kind of set the value for the entry, get value because I need to retrieve all the values to kind of pass them back. Handle submit is the function that is called to validate everything. Trigger will force a specific field to kind of validate itself, and then reset clears all the fields that are associated with the form. The form state, this errors gives me back the errors that are associated with the form. And then we call, here's our use form hook, and we pass it in the resolver. And it's a yup resolver. We're using this form schema above that I've created up here. We want to check for errors on blur, and then here we just list what our default values are. Our title, our description, and our image string is null. So that's how you get ReactHookForm in here. But let's kind of wrap up some other things that are missing to get our button to work. And so our button wants this handle submit. And so what will happen is when you click this button, it'll call ReactHookForm handle submit. And if everything's good, then it will call our function to save. And so let's just put our save function in. Excuse me. Let's just put our save function in right now, but we're not going to fill it all the way out at this point. We're just going to put it in as a placeholder to get this thing to compile. So where can we drop it in? Let's drop it right in here. We'll start put our functions in. And so this is our handle save function. And like I said, it'll get past the data, and if everything's fine, we clear out all of our existing form fields, and then we pass back to our caller the data. And so, as I said, we have our handle saved down here now. Let's see if we can get my app running again, if possible. And I need to add pressable because I'm using pressable in my buttons. So let's go up here and add that. Okay, so you can see we have our two buttons, our cancel and our save. So cancel closes the dialog, and that's what we want, and save calls the submit when valid. And of course, if nothing's valid because I haven't added any items to the form field, and so that's why the dialog's not closing. So let's start to put some fields in our form and add the stuff that we need along the way. We're going to basically repeat the same structure for all of our form fields. And so let's drop one in now and kind of walk through what we have going on here. So we have a contain. Well, let's see if we can get it to render so we can kind of see what it looks like as I'm talking about it. Well, we need our text input because it's a text input field. So let's go back up to React Native and add our text input field. And then we have our error text component, which you saw from our login page, which is how we're going to keep track of what the errors are. So let's import our error text component. Actually, let's import a couple of utility. We need our error alert and our error text. So let's import that right now. And then let's put our error text. We already have our error text down here because it's all part of kind of the pattern we're going to see. And so what you see down here is we have a container that holds everything from the input. Let me get this going. We pass the ID in as title. We don't want to auto capitalize, and we have a specific style that was defined. When the text changes, we call the set value from ReactHookForm, and it will assign the title to the value. So that's what we got there. And then the error text lets us know if there's any errors. Specifically, we pass in a name and a component of the variable we're checking for errors on, which is title, and then the errors. And if so, it'll display a little error message for you. Let's see. So this is what our title field looks like. And we click and we type and we enter data. And so that's our title field. Let's quickly kind of do the next one, which will be our description field. It's going to be a little bit different because our description is a text area. So the basic idea there is that it holds a larger amount of data. Let's copy that guy and put it in. Only a few things different here is that we are indicating this is multi-line and then the number of lines. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same as a normal input field. And so that's what we got going on there. I forgot, we didn't add the rest of the kind of registering the fields, the title and the description into ReactHookForm for the validation. So let's do that. And we have to do that in I'm messing up my words. We have to use that inside of a not a hook form, inside of a use effect. And so let's kind of get that going. And so we, right up under our use form, let's do a use effect. And so this is basically saying assign these fields or associate these fields with ReactHookForm, a title, description, and an image. What then, like, oh, I need to add my use effect to React. Let's put that up top here. And I know I'm going to need a use state, so I'm going to put that in right now too. Let's take my caps off and get that in there for later. Let's reload this and click our add. And so now you see we're getting our errors messages here. So let's delete this. We're getting our title. So HookForm is doing its job, but it's still not saving because there's other required field which we've specified is our image. So you could, specify the required fields, and so nothing's going to work. We get to required fields. The last component that we need to add on the field is actually an ImagePicker. And so with that, I am using the Expo ImagePicker component. So let's do two things. Let's import that, and then let's install it. So let's go up to the top here. And we'll do it right under React Native. And then let's install that. And so we've installed the ImagePicker, and with the ImagePicker we need to get the permission from the camera. So let's add that function, and we're going to do it at startup inside of HookForm. Inside this use effect. Of course, this will only work on device, so once I plug in my device, so we start to kind of test the ImagePicker stuff, we'll validate that all that stuff working. So we've set up our ImagePicker, and then the next thing that, actually what I'm going to do for now, until we get on device, I'm going to switch this to actually not request the camera, but I'm going to use the ImagePicker until we actually get everything working. So I think I can do it like this. Let's comment this out for now. So we're just going to test on device at the end. ImagePicker.request. All right, so this way we can kind of run it through on device, and then at the end I'll switch it, we'll show it on the camera. So we have the image picker check right here. And then now let's go down and add the last part, which is our component, where we're going to ask the user to pick an image. Okay, so we've now integrated our image picker. Let's kind of walk through what we did with the code here. We have our title. We have our view that kind of wraps around everything. And then what we do is we check get images to see if we already have an image value. If we do have an image value, then this title keeps hanging around. Then we render the image using the image component. So let's make sure I add that. Did I already add that in React Native? I'm shocked that's working. So let's add the image component here. So that works properly. And then the next thing that we want to do, let's get back down here. So if there's an image, we render it. If there's not an image, then we just render what you're seeing now, which is just click to add photo. Let's see if this is going to work for me. Nice. Possible ejection. Can't find image can't find variable pick image. We're not picking an image. That I need to switch that. So where is that code? Oh, I didn't add my function that picked the image. That's why this isn't working. So let's add the function to pick the image. And this function to pick the image is, we're pretty much lifting it from our photo screen here where we did our other image stuff. And request media library permission. And then let's go down. Image picker. Then we see here we have this pick image function where we're going to do something very similar in our pick image function. But basically we launched the function, allows us to pick an image. We specify what media we want to get. And then it kind of returns us a photo URI. In this example, we uploaded it immediately. In our code, we want to save it. So let's take a look at that function. Okay, so let's go back to, where's our modal. So let's go back to our modal. Let's add our pick image function here. And as I said, we are calling the, we're not launching the camera. We're going to, that's launch camera async. We're going to launch image library async, and that's how we'll pick an image. And we want all the media types. And so that's how we're going to pick an image. And then what we do is based on the photo that we get back, we take the URI and we set the image value. We also set the image type, and then we also trigger image, which will force it to kind of re-render the screen and give us a thumbnail of the image that we just picked. Let me get my image type. And make sure I add it to my default values, which I did not do. Now let's see if we can click to add a photo. So we now have our image picker, we pick an image, it triggers it, and then now we have our image saved here in the middle of our screen. And then we add our title, there's a dun 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 dun, and then let's see, it should allow me to save it now, because I have all the fields. And so that seemed to work fine. Let's see if we can get it to dump the fields out. So the on save here, let's just console log data. And let's try this again. Add a photo. Title, description, save. And then if I kind of look at the console, we can see I got the information. I got the image, the URI, which is what I'm going to need to save it. I got the image type, which is the image. I got the title, and I got the description. This is the data that I need to pass to Supabase to upload the record. Now that we have our data showing up and we're able to cancel our screen, we're able to add data and do error checking, we need to actually start saving this stuff to the database. So if we go back to our home screen, you can see our home screen is what's really kicking it off. It's kicking it off by calling this AddItemModal. It's getting rendered, and then when I click, I'm going to send my data back. So right now, all I'm doing is hiding the modal, but I need to actually process that data. So to process that data, we need to add some functions inside of our home component. Our home component, we're going to do a couple of things. First, we want to be able to show the data. So to show the data, we're going to introduce a flat list. And so here inside of this page content, introduce a flat list. And the flat list comes from React Native also. So let's put this flat list in here. Bring our flat list up at the top and add it to React Native. Our flat list, it needs some data. It needs to know how to render the item. And then here it's just going to extract the ID from the object, and that's what it's going to use. So we need to introduce a state variable to hold the item data. Now here's where we start to use the functions that we, and let's add our render item data. And that's going to be passed an item to render, and then it's going to have to draw it, and then return. It's just called render item. Oh, I deleted that from there. Okay, let's see what we get. Okay, and here's our home page. Right now, there's no data to render, and so that's because we're not loading up any data inside of our use effect. And so let's add our use effect. Make sure I add this above. We're only going to run this once in the beginning. And so what we need to do with use effect, we need to actually load data. And here's where we're going to start to use the functions that we had from our service. We read data from Supabase function. I hope you guys remember that from the beginning of the video. And so let's start adding these. We're not using the status bar. So let's start adding these functions as imports from a Supabase service. Import read item data from Supabase service. Okay, so at startup, inside of our use effect, we want it to read item data because we're going to read the data and we're going to set item data, and then set item data, get it fed into our flat list. So let's add it. Load data, and that should read some data. But let's just put the load data in there now. All right. So when there's data, it should read it, and let's see. Right up in here, let's console log out data. See if we're actually getting any data. And let's look at our console. And our console says we aren't getting any data because there's no data in the system. So let's add some other functions here to actually write items to the database. And so we're going to do that when you come back from this AddItemModal. So when you come back from the AddItemModal, we need to call a new function. So let's kind of copy this. Because we're going to reuse this. And since we're going to reuse this, we're going to move this up into our new function that's going to get called when the screen is closed. All right, so let's take all of this out. Call on modal close. Go up here. We're going to, like I said, we'll use this later. And we'll create a function const on modal close. We'll clearly get some data. But the first thing we want to do at the top is we want to close the modal. So no matter what, when you come back, close the modal. But the interesting thing is that if we don't get past any data, then all we're going to do is close the modal. So just the values. And so if not null values, then we're going to process the data. This is where we're going to actually save the data. And kind of to save the data, we need to do two things. First thing is upload image, and second thing is write item with image key. It's a two-step process. So once again, we're going to use the functions that we wrote before. We have our kind of upload from URI. Since we're doing some await, let's slap an async here. And then after we upload that, we get our response. And we're going to use that response to save our data to the database. And we're going to use our other function from our, let's import these guys. So let's go up here. We have our read item data, our write item data, and our upload from URI. Remember, these are all the functions we put in our Supabase service in the beginning of the video. And so we're going to take this value, and remember we're passing the image and the image type back as values. And we're going to use that to upload it, and then we're going to get a response, and from a response we're going to get the image data key. Because remember, this returns this image data object. Then we take our values that got passed back from our form, a title, and we take our description, and then we write it to the database. I said if there's no values, then save, but there should be if there's values, save. So that's why nothing happened. So let's try this again. Add. Put my title. Save. Okay. So let's see if we got any data. So here's my Supabase. Let's kind of zoom this in a bit. And you can see my image bucket uploaded an image. See if I can see that image. And there's the image. So I know my image got uploaded. And then this now look at my database tables. And I have a record with my test description here, test title. So I know I have data in my database. So now that we have some data in our database, let's try to see if we can get our FlatList to render that data that we have in the database. As I said, for our FlatList, we pass our data in our item data. Whenever we start the component, we load our item data, and we call it set item. So that means now I just need to add my render, fill out the rest of my render item component. My render item component is going to render a component for each element inside of the item data. Let's take a look at how we want to do that. And we're going to do it like this. All right. Our item property is getting passed in. We're destructuring it to get these values out of it. And then out of the profile, I need to get the username, the last name, and the first name. And then here I'm formatting the date time into something that can be rendered better. So that's how I'm getting all the values. And then now after I get the values, I need to actually render them. And so we need to return a component. So before I get to the image part, let's just comment out the render image component because I'm not there yet. And just talk to what we're doing here. So all we're doing is we're using a style that we imported from the beginning. And then we are kind of just adding a little more style to the title, rendering a box, and displaying some of the times, the date times that we got. So let's see if that works. Refresh the screen. All right, why is my item not getting rendered? So this is my render item component. This is my flat list. Oh, this item data is not right. All right, so there we go. So there we have our one item. But the other thing we want to do is we want the real time, because now watch, if I go back in here and I just add another record, click to add a photo, choose the photo, it's updated. Now I save it. Now the record's been added, but you don't see it. But if I refresh everything, you can see my second record. So here's now where we're going to take advantage of the subscription that we set on my info table to get it to automatically update as I add records. So to do that, inside of my use effect, we are going to listen for changes to the database. And I have a function here that's going to handle that. And I put a little comment above it also so that it's clear. So we'll go back inside of my home. And right up here underneath our load function, we're going to add another function called listen for changes. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the Supabase. I probably should move this out to the service, but we're basically saying listen on my item data table for any changes. And if there's any changes, just load my data again. And then the other thing that we're doing here is we want to be able to unsubscribe from this. I have a function to call that gets returned from Supabase to unsubscribe, and I'm passing that back from listed for changes. So then we're going to change what we do here inside of use affected startup. And so use affected startup, we're going to do two things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load the data, and then when that promise is resolved, we're going to listen for changes, and then we're going to return the unsub promise, the unsub function that we get back, and we're going to save that so that when we unload this component and we unload this use effect here, it will call the unsubscribe. So that's what's going on here. Let's try and refresh this again. Oh, I need to bring in my Supabase. Where is my here? So let's bring in Supabase. Okay, so now let's test this. Let's test this listen for changes to see if that works. So let's add another item. It won't let me save, so I don't have an image. I need to clean up that error message. But let's click and add another image. So it's got that image. Save, and you see it updated because it got the change. The last thing that we want to do now is just render the image that comes along with it. And so what I've done is I've created a separate component to render the image. The more I looked at this, the more I realized maybe a separate component was overkill, but it was already done. So I'm going to throw it in with the video, and we'll walk through what it does. So this component I just called render image. And what render image does is it takes an image key, and then I also allow you to pass some style information in. And what it does is when the component is first mounted, it takes the image key, it gets the information that it needs, it passes that to Supabase to find the image in storage, and I get the public URL back. I set the public URL back that's associated with that image, and then I pass it to this image component for it to render it. So let's go back up in here and uncomment that from my render item. And I did not import use state. And I need React Native image. And so there's my images. So now let's put it all together. Let's add a title with image. Description. And there's my title with image. Can't perform React state update on unmount. Where did that come from? We'll look into that a little bit later because I don't want this video to get too long. So you can see everything's working. The last thing that I want to show is I want to switch this back to actually using the camera, and for the last part kind of show you the demo running on a camera. Let me get my device ready to get plugged up and to show you guys this. Okay, let's go back to our modal. And actually, want to know what? Let's do both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. Right now, the web will put, so now we'll add another one underneath here. Request media library. We're going to say, we'll see what else. What can I request? Camera permission. Right, why is this upset? If, oh, because I took one of them. There you go. So now I'm going to request both. So I'll make both requests when I start this component up. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to change this function to support both. So we'll say photo, if photo. There's probably a cooler, cleaner way that you can do this, but I'm just going to drop them all in. So we'll do it like this. We'll take our photo out of here, and I'll change it to use camera. So if use camera, first let our photo equal to null. Let's get this let out of there and this let out of there. And so if we use camera, then launch camera async. Otherwise, here's how we can clean this up a bit. Let's take this out. Say const options, and then just say options and then let's go to pick image, see who's using it. So we'll say pick image camera. Okay, so now we should be able to use the camera. Yeah, let's see what happens if I try to throw two buttons in here. This gets kind of tricky. So I need to change this behavior a bit. Because here, if you pick the image when there's already an image, I only have this one button for camera again. So So what we're going to do now is if you click on an existing image, instead of allowing you to select another one, we're just going to null it out. So that's what we're going to do to make this a little bit more straightforward. So here, when you have an image, if you click this, we're going to say set value image null. So if you click it, it'll null out the existing image. And then down here will allow you to pick a photo or the gallery. So for this one, for pick image, we want to say camera is true. Now we'll use a photo to take photo, click to use gallery. And this will be false. And this is complaining because it's not inside of anything. Let's see if I can get away with just putting it inside of a fragment. Let's see what this looks like. How bad does it look? All right, so now I can use the gallery. And it's just reminding me an image field required, so let's click and pick a picture from the gallery. And it resets it. Let's click it. Set value of image to null. Oh, I know it's not triggering it. So I need to trigger this. And also it's not async. So let me take the async off of that. Yeah, I think I need to trigger. So after I set the value here, I also need to trigger image. And it doesn't like that, so I need to wrap this in a function again. Okay. Let's click to use gallery, use a gallery, choose, sets an image, and then clears it. It says it has to be a string, so let me stop setting that to null and set that to a string. So it'll just give us our normal error message. And let's make sure we initialize image to string also. Okay. So click to use gallery, take a picture, choose it, sets the picture, click to remove it, and it's gone. So that's how we're handling it in the, on the simulator. So now, because I can't take a photo on here, it's just going to throw an error, right? Which I probably should handle, but I won't because this video is getting long. So now let's pause and kind of show this app running on the phone. Okay, so here we have our app on the phone. We're going to add an item. So we enter title. See how the keyboard moves up and down for us. Now we are going to take a photo. See the thumbnail is created. We need to add some descriptive text. Once again, see how the keyboard pops up, how the view slides up. That's what we're doing with this keyboard is aware component that we imported. Now we save it and make sure you get the refresh, and you get the refresh, you see where it added the new item on the bottom of the list there. So we covered a bunch of stuff in this video. It's almost an hour long. Hopefully you appreciate it. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Take care, and bye now.